So artist Darent Z created what might be some of the hardest anime villain cosplays for our favorite childhood cartoons that could have ever been asked for. In this video, we're going to briefly, and I mean briefly, because we could talk about some of these characters and their different abilities and powers for literally hours on end, summarize how strong these Western cartoon anime criminal organizations would be, what each of these different characters' roles would probably be in their organization, and at the end of the day, we'll decide objectively which one is better. Because the Phantom Troop simply take on their numbered tattoos with no real hierarchy or strength ranking in mind, I think it'll be much more interesting to focus on what kind of Nen user these Disney replacements would be, as well as how they fit into the Phantom Troop's hobbies of heisting and homicide. First of all, Zoro is here again for some reason, somehow wandered into a completely different universe yet again for the third time. Someone needs to look into how many timelines this man has just accidentally destroyed simply by existing where he shouldn't, getting lost in alternate dimensions. But more importantly, with how diverse this Disney Phantom Troop seems to be, I'm surprised the minority hunter Rorona Zoro would even be caught dead in this villain organization to begin with. Seriously though, when looking at the actual members of the Disney Phantom Troop, you can see they're one of the most well-rounded groups Darent has drawn for us. For example, one of the first troop members I want to highlight is going to be Kim Possible, a vigilante hero who's a master of over 16 different martial arts styles. As a secret agent, Kim Possible is able to sneak into high security facilities and military complexes without being noticed and dispatch threats with little to no effort at all. And for a criminal organization like the Phantom Troop that's garnered their reputation for mass thievery and covert operations, a vigilante like Kim Possible fits right in. And her physical stats are nothing to scoff at in the realm of Hunter x Hunter either. With her many different weapons and gadgets, such as the communicator that acts as a jack of all trades, hacking other technology, tracking and locating objects or human targets, even scanning allies or enemies' vitals for vulnerabilities or injuries. Kim Possible has also wielded things like the lipstick laser that tears through metal or shoots substances from a wristwatch that immediately knock opponents unconscious. But the most dangerous weapon of all is Kim Possible's battle suit that not only drastically amplifies her physical stats to the point she's leaving behind after images, wearing that suit can create large earthquakes in the ground beneath her, or catch and reflect attacks made of pure energy as if it's nothing. The battle suit can repair itself, turn invisible, even fly, and empower its striking strength with its own charged up blue energy, allowing Kim Possible to tackle citywide threats like Shigo, who's a master martial artist herself and has been shown to vaporize average people or objects with her superpowers. But Kim can just tank these supernatural attacks and even go as far as to defeat Team Go, an entire team of superhuman threats. The vigilante hero would probably be some type of emitter or enhancer type hunter and be an essential spider on heist and on the battlefield. The same can be said for another recognizable teenage hero, Jake Long, a boy born to a line of actual Chinese dragons that's able to harness and wield his supernatural dragon powers in a way to protect his home city, and also being able to inflict some pretty serious damage himself. As in his dragon form, Jake has accidentally obliterated entire structures just by the shockwaves created from his sneezes, and his foul dragon breath alone is able to make people drop unconscious just by inhaling it, and that's just on accident, as when purposefully using his powers, Jake can conjure large orbs of flames from either his mouth or hands that can explode or melt steel beams. Wait, no, Jake, you couldn't have. Even the general release of fire from Jake's transformation is enough to burn and cause harm to others, showing just how much power resides in the teenage dragon. And besides being immune to fire himself, Jake can also manipulate the different parts of his dragon body to partially transform and use his claws or tail for attack, conjure large windstorms with just the flaps of his wings, or even wield magical abilities like duplicating himself with chi manipulation. Jake Long would be a much more brutish Phantom Troop member and not really working well behind the scenes or being stealthy. He's much more suited for the front line of combat, as Jake has shown time and time again that despite being a child, he's an exceptional hand-to-hand combatant and is capable of great acrobatic feats. On top of the fact his dragon form is also increasing his general awareness of his senses like sight and hearing, so that way it vastly improves Jake's surveillance and reflexes. If Jake Long can defeat defeat the Dark Dragon, the largest supernatural and magical threat to a city and community, he can at least act as a part of the Phantom Troop's muscle, as a transmuter or manipulator. Unfortunately though, even in the Disney Phantom Troop, there are some stinkers in the lineup. One of Disney's misses is gonna have to be Kit Buttowski, who, despite being an absolute menace to his friendly neighborhood and not being afraid to perform any insane stunt known to man, the only real potential this kid has shown is on the dodgeball field. I mean, sure, kid kicks a dodgeball so hard it catches on fire, punches one so hard there's a sonic boom, and is able to dodge every single dodgeball while running around the entire gymnasium and its walls like he's got ultra instinct or something. Actually, you know what? He might actually be kind of strong. But just because he can survive long falls or put human-sized Junji Ito craters in the ground doesn't mean he can actually endure going up against a heist with other Nen users or mafia members. The child is also often way too much of a risk taker for his own good and repeatedly gets himself hurt instead of actually ever completing his stunts half the time. Kit Buttowski would play his best position in a behind-the-scenes role for the Phantom Troop as some kind of like stuntman with enhancement Nen maybe, or like crazily enough, I could even see Kit Buttowski being some mad scientist specialist Nen type. Because, and I mean, hear me out on this one, when it comes to being a unique individual who is willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish what he sets his mind to, Kit Buttowski has proven himself quite the intelligent psychopath in certain situations, completing a month's worth of homework in one night. Also, he could free up his schedule to work on a vehicle that would be capable of breaking the sound barrier, and that's just all in one day. I mean, this requires some level of extreme resolve and genius, making me think Kit Buttowski could fill the role of some crazy inventor or strategist type that, while making absolutely no sense at all to his teammates, would somehow always come to the correct conclusion or best outcome, despite it seemingly appearing as the most dangerous option to go through. Speaking of other characters that would probably play better roles in the background than being on the front lines, would be the twins from Gravity Falls, Dipper and Mabel Pines. Now, a character like Dipper is the embodiment of prep time. Bro is always coming to every single situation with some kind of complicated plan, even to the point that just asking a girl to the dance was a point-by-point mission. And Mabel herself is responsible for solving crime mysteries that no police officer or detective was capable of figuring out on their own in like 100-year time spans. The twins' genius does not extend to just plain preparation either, as even mid-crisis, both Mabel and Dipper have proven their ability to think on the fly. I mean, Dipper's quick wit is what led to the creation of the crystal flashlight, which is an invention that's capable of changing someone's size or just outright increasing their strength, something that can definitely extend to Dipper's allies. And Dipper also personally has access to other weapons like the memory gun that can disrupt enemies' neural pathways and directly delete their memories, or the magnet gun that can magnetize objects and attract them from afar for offense or defense. Mabel herself is an expert in building extremely dangerous pyrotechnics or creating bombs from household disposables. With the amount of paranormal threats they've both faced, their resolve under pressure is commendable. Dipper was willing to throw hands with literal hands, and Mabel showed she's just as capable as her brother because she literally physically beat Dipper in a fight while he was possessed by Bill Cipher. We also can't forget about the time that Dipper completed his training with the Manitars, meaning he's capable of smashing an entire boulder and enduring the pain hole. But the twins have also survived colossal explosions, stood up against planetary threats like Bill Cipher, and while I wouldn't put Dipper or Mabel in the same tier of power as like Kim Possible, they could both make experienced hunters who honestly could fit into any category of Nen. Whereas someone who I think comes a little bit closer to Kim Possible in overall ranking would be Randy Cunningham. Who? The whitest possible name you could ever give to a ninja. But despite only being in 9th grade, after receiving the ninja mask and saving his town from multiple different shinobi-related threats, Randy is actually quite the capable combatant and shadow assassin. Randy the 9th grade ninja is exceptionally adept at all different types of weaponry, such as grappling hooks for stealthy transportation, chain sickles for long-range fighting, or special ninja bombs like smoke, freezing, or stun grenades. Randy's favorite melee weapon is his katana that he can dual wield if he so chooses, and whether he's fighting monsters monsters, robots, or the forces of magic, the 9th grader always comes out of the battlefield somehow unscathed. Randy Cunningham has proven himself stronger than villains in his universe like Lucius O'Thunderpunch that have obliterated large meteors with their strikes. Adapting to each one of these dangerous threats as they come, Randy also has access to multiple different versatile magic spells of his own to aid his assaults in battle. The 9th grade ninja can easily make enemies or even machines for some reason vomit by hitting the correct pressure points, and his heightened ninja senses allow him to fight blindfolded or predict opponents' actions as if he had precognition. To the point, my man has even dodged full-on laser beams of light. When channeling his maximum power, Randy's able to launch colossal shockwaves of pressurized air from his punches, or even manipulate the earth around him to split into clones, or summoning giant sandworms that can aid Randy in battle. And at his most powerful, Randy can transform into a rage mode where he gains elemental powers such as Ninja Tengu fireballs that launch and explode on contact with their targets, putting Randy Cunningham in a similar league of town/city saving troop members like Kim and Jake as either a dual enhancer/conjuration type or specialist. However, if you've been following these videos up until this point, you'll notice that so far none of the Disney Phantom Troop have really been too impressive. They all sit around similar levels of power and they can definitely protect entire cities from villains, but it takes only one big heavy hitter from the other teams and their entire troop is taken out. And you would be right in assuming that if it wasn't for the last 3 duos that I've got to go over on this Disney Phantom Troop list, including the new mastermind of the troop that will be replacing Crollo Lucifer as the Dark Prince of the Spiders. And you'll see right away the 2 power couples of Puka and Garu and Star and Marco from Star vs. the Forces of Evil will heavily inflate the Phantom Troop by a lot. Puka and Garu are the first members to vastly benefit from the Toon Force hack, while Garu expresses himself as a much more serious ninja and tries to rely on his ninjutsu and impressive acrobatics. His yandere girlfriend by force, Puka, is the one that relies on these benefits of reality bending to get by. That being said, I don't want to besmirch their names too much as they are both strong ninjas. Even Puka herself is able to dispatch enemies with her physical skills just like Garu is. And although Puka and Garu take it a step further by effortlessly dodging extreme speed obstacles like lightning bolts or running around the world in less than a day, the main difference between Puka and Garu is that they are essentially immortal. Garu himself was shown surviving even after being reduced to just a skeleton, and Puka herself almost never takes a single lick of damage despite all the things that happen to her, like being crushed by boulders. As a man of honor, regardless of his Toon Force levels of durability, Garu has earned his attack potency and strength respectively through intense training and taking a vow of silence to further prove his dedication to the ninja craft. He's shown the power to turn people into stone, split himself into illusionary clones, or even transcend to the astral plane. Garu can even manipulate electricity to do things like fly, or even conjure massive amounts of lightning, so much so that he can disintegrate foes on contact, or generate comparable power to his rival, Toby, that was said to create electricity with the power of over 1,000 storms and can effortlessly take down large buildings. And then there's Puka, who's transformed both her and Garu into star constellations in the sky without hesitation, or just created humongous vicious weather by being in a foul mood. With her control over reality, Puka has also acknowledged the existence of other universes, such as Sailor Moon, and conjured her wand and outfit in order to make use of all of her powers and transcend dimensions. Puka has once also evolved into a transformation known only as Noodle Girl, where even just by taking footsteps, the entire earth itself quaked in fear. She is like literally if RAR XD was a fighting style, which I think should easily classify her as a high tier member of the Disney troupe and most likely a specialist, since Puka kind of just manipulates the universe to her will. Meanwhile, the more traditional Lightning Ninja Garu probably sits somewhere closer to Killua on Transmuter or maybe even Emitter. And our next power couple, Star and Marco, I think take the cake as the strongest members of the entire Disney troupe. Because if you're not familiar with Star versus the Forces of Evil, welcome to the club. Honestly, the more I found out, the more terrified I got. Star Butterfly is a princess from another dimension that possesses a wand and capacity for magic that could one day result in the destruction of multiple universes. Actually, having already deleted some in the past, albeit those dimensions were fixed afterwards words, by her very same magic, wielding the Butterfly family's royal magic wand. By the end of her series, Star Butterfly is an exceptional combatant that's able to combine her genius intelligence and adaptability with her wand's extreme magical prowess to wield power that has saved the multiverse on many occasions. On screen, Star has shown the ability to create portals to other dimensions or use an all-seeing eye that can find any person or anything, no matter where or when they are. And on the battlefield, the princess can conjure giant butterfly wings to increase her agility and mobility, while also launching powerful magic attacks like barrage of explosive leeches that blow up on contact, or ice beams that can freeze opponents and even manipulate full blizzards. Which is sure all great, right? But what makes her better than some of these previous entries? Well, it isn't until you take a look at one of Star's spells in her little book that you can see the kind of extremities she's capable of bringing out. Because despite that low experience she has, Star's royal wand isn't put on some kind of restriction or limiter. From the get-go, if casted, Star is capable of using magic that caused previous users of the royal wand to just delete all gravity from the realm, and in the same breath conjure a giant lasso that can be powerful enough to wrap around the planet and snap its axis back into place to return gravity. Star has the spell with no name, a forbidden magic attack that literally acts like a pseudo Hakai from Dragon Ball Z, destroys a being's existence on the spot. And to take that a step further, the royal wand has spells like Mega Explosive Crystal Laser that tear through entire planets in one cast. There's a legitimate reason that after gifting Star the wand, her mother warns the princess that if released to its fullest potential, a user of the royal wand could probably obliterate the entire universe with a single spell if its magic was abused. And although Star herself would probably never use catastrophic magic like this on ordinary occasions, in a no-holds-barred environment where she needs to meet someone with universe-ending power themselves, I'm sure Star isn't afraid to go as far as she needs to win and save her people. Because as much as she pretends to be a ditzy teenage girl, Star is actually a very smart protagonist. And because she has a wand that literally just lets her do whatever she needs it to, she becomes an insanely dangerous specialist trump card for the Disney troupe, as in drastic situations, when needing to deceive an enemy, Star has shown capacity to go against her peaceful nature and take advantages of her opponent's weaknesses, even tricking them like whispering a cataclysmic spell into her wand before letting it loose into a castle and letting it self-destruct with a time-bombed explosion that decimated the entire structure in one blast. Star's partner, Marco Diaz, is surprisingly just as capable as Star on the battlefield despite lacking that magical power. As a master martial artist himself, Marco can keep up with Star in a fight directly. I mean, he's agile enough to dodge or even deflect her spells, as well as compare to her attack potency and striking strength, whether Marco's fighting hundreds of robots, monsters, or even clones. Whether it takes Marco 16 years or 2 seconds, he will take down all of his opponents and win. And like, that's not an exaggeration. I shit you not, there's a timeline where Marco literally had to survive 16 years fighting non-stop. And like, he just brushes that off like it's nothing. Marco has defeated trained groups of knights with his arms tied to his sides. He's damaged magical beings like Mitoria after she absorbed the power of multiple souls. So regardless if he's playing second fiddle or not, Marco is a great bare bones enhancer that has even shown the ability to make use of Star's wand, making the two characters inseparable. However, power isn't everything in the Phantom Troupe, which is why I think the perfect replacement for Krollo Lucifer as the leader of the Spiders, that role goes perfectly for Phineas Flynn and his adopted brother Ferb. As the cold, calculating, yet extremely compassionate about their teammates leader of the Shadow organization, I think the position couldn't be better suited for the extremely big-brained and normally pacifistic Phineas. And considering Ferb is mostly just that sidekick that helps Phineas with his adventures and ideas on what to do on what day, outside of their extreme toon force, durability, and reality bending, most of Phineas and Ferb's power stems from Phineas's genius intelligence. They've created reality bending inventions like it's an everyday occurrence, such as omniscient supercomputers that can strategize every outcome, or molecular separators that can literally and figuratively take people apart. The brothers have built spaceships to travel to outer space, or even created portals that can access alternate dimensions or jump to different times, such as the past or future. And the thing that separates characters like Phineas and Ferb from other duos like Dipper and Mabel, while diving deeply into the supernatural in Gravity Falls, they do not have the the same kind of insane toon force that Phineas and Ferb do, as their inventions not only exceed the other Genius Troop members on grounds of scale, considering no other member has developed a robot that was able to conjure a force field around the entire galaxy, quote unquote, just because, but the brothers' capacity to manipulate reality itself allows them to shift entire environments or just bare bones create pocket dimensions in seconds, as if the world was a Broadway set for them. And what if I told you that actually none of this was toon force and there was a legit real world explanation as to why Phineas and Ferb have such a strong control over reality itself? In a special crossover episode, Baljeet discovers that he has enough evidence and logical data to scientifically prove a new natural law of the universe. He entitles it the Phineas and Ferb effect. By emitting positive aura from their bodies, both Phineas and Ferb have a passive effect on the physical realm's natural probability. Just by existing, the two brothers' presence alone influences reality in such a way that the universe must always shift in accordance with their supernatural good luck, meaning any threat that goes against the brothers will inadvertently miss them, or even worse, be reflected right back on themselves, making Phineas and Ferb two nigh immortal beings capable of not only creating any situation they put their minds to, but are inversely incapable of having any bad thrown in their direction. As specialists who can work in the shadows and direct the troop with what they should do that day, Phineas and Ferb can lead their fellow criminals proudly, commanding respect regardless of their less dangerous nature. Also, in Darent's art, they have both the Omnitrix and the Infinity Gauntlet, so take that as you will. It's important to understand what kind of changes all of the PBS moons would be undergoing just from the sheer fact that all of them are demons now, let alone the 12 most powerful demons in the entire Demon Slayer series. By nature of being converted into a demon, a nocturnal vampiric-like entity that gains unlimited stamina and superhuman strength from ingesting the blood of patient Zero, Muzan Kibutsuji, and having a strong enough will to survive its parasitic effects. Once becoming a demon, all members of the PBS moons will essentially be immortal, immune to all disease, injuries, and even aging. If a demon is harmed, even to the point of losing their limbs or head, they will quickly regenerate. The speed at which this occurs can range from momentarily to instantaneously. Because they can just grow continuously without limit, there does exist a vast disparity between demons concerning power, a large strength gap even separating the 12 moons themselves into two distinct halves. For the purposes of this video, I will also be splitting the PBS moons between lower and upper ranks. And yes, that does mean you too, Zoro. However, for some of the lower moons from PBS, these special demon abilities might literally be all these characters have to rely on. For example, the representatives for lower rank 6, Arthur and Buster. Two cartoon characters with not a single feat between them besides making a fist really tightly and being somewhat skeptical of things you see on the internet. You can watch all 25 seasons of Arthur. I promise you, you will not find a single fucking feat that can be used in an anime battle. No scene of Arthur blinking behind another character to attack their blind side. No mention of how powerful a punch from Buster might be in reference to universal relativity. Just some wholesome kids show about teaching a kid's lesson. Shameful. Lower moons like Arthur and Buster are going to specifically rely on their special demon physiques to fight in anime battles, which unfortunately, in no regards to fairness, does make the two of them basically impervious to all damage that isn't from a Nichiren blade, and if not, they can just regenerate. Unless the two of them are fighting outside, Arthur and Buster can just realistically battle forever through attrition without an end in sight, really as long as no sunlight gets involved. And on top of this, a lot of the more established demons, especially the 12 demon moons, have unlocked special powers known as blood demon arts that can help increase these creatures' strengths. And while there isn't really enough information for me to try and give a blood demon art to the lower 6 duo, I can spare everyone the annoyance of having 13 demons in a 12-person organization by making them share a rank, as even lower 5 and lower 4 moons, Naughty and Toyland and Bob the Builder, don't really have that many scenes either power that can translate into anime fight stats. However, significantly more to go off of than the previous two. Lower 5, Naughty in Toyland, is a self-declared detective who's constantly responsible for solving mysteries and helping his neighborhood stay safe from supernatural threats like goblins or invisible monsters. Despite being just a wooden toy, Naughty is one of the most intelligent members of his community and uses his wit and quick thinking to get his friends out of trouble and not get hurt when evil toys attack the town. Naughty is also versatile enough to drive all types of vehicles, land, air, or sea. While being made of wood is probably a significant downside for an otherwise immortal demon, fire probably becoming a huge disadvantage for Naughty, the blood demon art that Naughty in Toyland would develop could be quite a powerful manipulation technique to control wood itself, bestowing lower rank 5 with the power to control all toys in a given area, as well as convert all of their victims into wooden voodoo dolls of their former selves, eventually gaining an army of wooden mannequins to attack with, depending on how many people Naughty can trick into getting hit by him. And in the case of Bob the Builder, our Lower Moon 4, I think his blood demon art could be something similar, but go even further to become the manipulation of any and all power tools or objects that conduct electricity. Almost like a control freak from Teen Titans or an upgrade from Ben 10, by not necessarily controlling electricity, but sending his essence through the power lines, Bob the Builder could essentially possess dangerous objects in a factory or city-like setting and completely take over, which just fits in line with the whole idea that Bob has all of these anthropomorphic vehicles that aid him in his construction work. And we can even add the whole builder thing into making all of these objects be able to create one giant mechanical monster. Its size and weaponry just depending on how many tools and what type of objects Bob can get a hold of. Ironically though, in the actual cartoon, Bob is pretty bad with computers and always misses important calls because he forgets to turn his cell phone on. Despite having a strong ability, he lacks the technical know-how to use it to its fullest potential, and instead decides to rely on older, less accessible power tools and weaponry instead of more advanced tactics like maybe hacking into a computer network and stealing the nuclear missile codes or something. The Boomer in Bob is his worst enemy, and I think that's poetic writing, honestly. What I will say is that as we get closer to the upper moons, the potential for these demons to just become pure eldritch abominations is genuinely obscenely high. Imagine what Lower Moon 3 Clifford the Big Red Dog would look like as a creature of the night. Even in his own cartoon, Clifford is like 25 feet tall in a normal position, but the dog could probably tower over large buildings just by going up on its hind legs. With a demon's already enhanced extrasensory, the distance and range would only be substantially expanded for a demon that's base species is a dog, meaning despite his large size, Clifford's reflexes, agility, sight, smell, everything might be able to perceive and react to attacks or threats even faster than demons that rank higher than Clifford. The Big Red Dog stats getting boosted significantly by Muzan's demon blood, Clifford could just bring down entire city blocks from howling. If Clifford is tipping over houses accidentally just from leaning on them, or causing entire earthquakes just from howling to the moon, I don't even think a blood demon art would be necessary to see why Clifford outranks the previous moons. But since the good boy loves to dig ginormous holes, maybe some kind of ground traversal technique where he can just tunnel through the ground to compensate for his large shape, making it easier to get around without being noticed. Also, if you didn't notice in the original picture, Curious George just has Sun Wukong's golden headband and his magical staff Rui Jingu Bang. So yeah, the Monkey King has pushed himself all the way to lower rank 2 just from that power up alone. Lower Moon 2 should just be able to run circles around all of the previous moons, just based off combat potential and flexibility alone. And just to make it even more concrete, let's give George the blood demon art of being able to clone himself like Wukong. The golden headband replica would be the determining factor, so that way you could tell the real George from the clones. The reason martial arts supremacy does not award Curious George a higher spot on the totem pole is due to the reality bending power born from some of the more chaotic members of the demon moons. And the lower ranks leader, Cat in the Hat, is ironically just a small taste of the mind bending frightening horrors that await later down the line in the upper ranks. That isn't said to disparage the lower moon one in any way, as the cat is honestly probably one of the perfect replacements for Enmu, the original lower one, that we could have ever asked for. While the Cat in the Hat does not necessarily put people to sleep and trap them in everlasting dreams, the cat is surely able to affect an enemy's reality to some degree over the range of a small location. The cat can manufacture zany inventions or creations that are able to defy physics, such as a box that acted as a portal to a separate dimension that can either be used as a bottomless storage for gadgets and gizmos, or opening a portal to the cat's world that pours into reality and can potentially take it over entirely. He has been shown to alter his surroundings just by performing musical numbers or television skits, and can even open up doors and windows where they never existed that all lead to completely different locations than they probably should. Because it seems the Cat in the Hat's control over reality is limited to a small vicinity that he's currently existing in, a claustrophobic and enclosed space like the Infinity Train would probably be like the best environment for a demon like Cat in the Hat to maintain complete dominance over his victims' torture and anguish. While the cat isn't protected by outright toon force, it has shown insane durability feats like surviving catastrophic car crashes and even hiding in plain sight or behind objects that he normally shouldn't fit behind. By taking advantage of a demon's immortality and lust for blood, the cat could travel the world, tricking local fools to ride his Infinity Train, using his surreal supernatural abilities to make passengers hallucinate evil visions, or summon his aides, Thing 1 and Thing 2, to personally see to the victim's trauma. Maybe he could just be an Enmu clone. When it comes to the original 12 demon moons, one thing that separates the upper ranks from the lower is the fact that over the course of 100 years, while the lower moons have constantly been replaced due to dying at the hands of the demon slayers, not once in that entire century has an upper moon demon ever lost a battle, not even to a Hashira, the peak of the demon slayer core. The reason for this is not just their overwhelming strength and access to constant replenishments of humans and blood, but all the experience and wisdom that comes from living a life as long and as fulfilled as them. All of the demons from this point on will be on an entirely different level than all of the lower moons that we have previously discussed. And the reason why I'm stressing that fact is due to how similar lower moon 1 and upper moon 6 may come across. Upper moon 6, Pocoyo, is also a demon whose powers rely heavily on the control they have over the universe and reality. However, unlike the Cat in the Hat, the sheer amount of dominance Pocoyo seems to have over the world is leagues apart from a novice like the cat. Born in a 3D void that this child claims to be a world, despite being just the small age of 4, Pocoyo is an extremely intelligent and worldly boy, capable of creating complicated inventions or coming up with plans and ideas well beyond his years, which honestly is way easier to explain as a demon that's lived for countless centuries as opposed to just a toddler that's pretty bright. Unlike the Cat in the Hat, Pocoyo seems to be capable of affecting the world around him on a much grander scale. Not only are his engineering creations much more suited for battle, such as machines that merge objects together to make stronger objects, or a remote that can make things invisible, and there are also multiple episodes where Pocoyo and his friends can change their shape and size for activities, like becoming full-on kaiju size and fighting each other with supernatural powers. So he's much more likely to just create wacky scenarios for the fun of it, rather than just outright warp physics or logic to his will. So even if Pocoyo was to become more evil, bloodlusted, and demonic, it's more likely that Pocoyo would just be a stronger, more realized version of the Cat in the Hat. But where Pocoyo gains even more of an advantage is the help he receives from all of his friends and animal creations. They would surely be willing to always fight alongside him, even in demon form. So I think as a blood demon art, it makes sense that Pocoyo would be able to conjure or summon his friends into reality. But also, like most children's shows, Pocoyo seems to receive divine guidance and instruction from the narrator and audience that watch him. So the second half of that blood demon art could essentially gift the upper moon demon with precognition, additional advice from outside parties on how to solve problems or overcome obstacles, making Pocoyo legitimately the "my friends are my power" demon. But I mean, hey, it might work. But that's where upper moon 5 steps in to show Pocoyo what's up. and that is Elmo. The thing that separates Elmo from the other reality benders is the fact that unlike the demons that can manipulate the outside world, Elmo can control everything as long as it's in Elmo's world. Elmo's blood demon art will involve trapping an opponent or victim into his own dimension, where Elmo has complete authority over everything within his realm. Now, outside of Elmo's world, Elmo's crayons should still be able to bring any creations he draws into reality, be they weapons, lesser demons, elemental attacks, whatever. So the Upper Moon Demon can still be somewhat capable of physical combat outside of his dimension, but it's obvious that Elmo will achieve the pinnacle of his strength inside the world that he has absolute control over. A victim trapped in Elmo's world can be sitting in lava to suddenly being in a snowstorm on top of a mountain or in the depths of the ocean underwater, and then to the vacuum of space, all in succession, or despite being hard to probably visualize, all at once. By shifting the course of his world, Elmo can warp himself or even the world as he pleases, meaning Elmo just has full time and control to make their opponent agonize as long as possible, or if Elmo is really pissed, he can just end it in seconds. The reason Elmo can get away with something like this is because it's impossible to kill Elmo inside of his world. Elmo's world is essentially Elmo's essence as a whole, his spirit. So even if Elmo is killed with a Nichiren blade outside of Elmo's world, the puppet can just revive inside of Elmo's world and reemerge into reality as a new being entirely. Don't count how many times I said Elmo, but an easy way to think of this would be Schrodinger from Hellsing Ultimate. Elmo both is and is not at the same time. Everywhere all at once, but yet nowhere all at the same time. Now, with all of that being said, after the first two Upper Moons just ended up being outright reality warpers that border on the line of the metaphysical, ironically enough, the next two Upper Moons are probably just going to be some of the most basic entries on the entire roster since Arthur and Buster, because I don't think Upper Moon 4 Rorono Zoro really needs any extra power or introduction. The man's got enough raw base power alone to fight off demons like Pocoyo and Elmo, so give Zoro unlimited stamina and a potential blood demon art. Even if he can't kill Pocoyo or Elmo, I think he's capable of outright breaking their hacks with aura alone. Give Demon Zoro something like Yami Tsukihiro from Black Clover's Dark Cloak Dimension Slash, a magical attack cloaked in darkness that can just split space open and tear through entire dimensions, and Elmo's world would never be a problem. And speaking of aura merchants, the follow-up to Zoro and holder of Upper Moon rank 3 could not be more obvious. It's Caillou. I'm replacing Akaza with Caillou. He's the new Upper Moon 3. I thought it would just be super boring to have another member of the PBS Moons be a nothing burger like Arthur and Buster, so Darren did me enough of a favor to draw Caillou with One Punch Man's outfit. So I'm just gonna lie and tell you that this is Saitama that after becoming a demon changed his shape to that of a child as to restrict his power level from growing any higher than it already was. By reducing his body's age down to a youthful 5 years old, Saitama was able to keep himself at the exact same stats and strength he was at in his own canon series. Only this time, One Punch Man is capable of busting galaxies with unlimited demon stamina and is resistant to any and all injuries that don't come from a Nichiren blade. As if One Punch Man wasn't hard enough to kill, somehow the PBS Moons were not able to acquire one but two demons that are surpassing One Punch Man in power. The first of which of those demons is going to be Upper Moon 2, Barney the Purple Dinosaur. As a 2-year-old dinosaur, which is 200 million years old in human years, by the way, Barney is essentially a wise sage-like character that has traveled all across the world and lived through countless eras and societies. With Muzan's blood now coursing through his veins, Barney's imagination is now allowed to come to life through the large array of sparkles the dinosaur can conjure into reality. Barney has been shown capable of outright changing the world around him, but nothing like any of the previous demons. Barney can just legitimately make toy rockets into real ones that can just take off and launch into outer space at the snap of a finger. Going a step further than simple size changing, Barney can transmutate human children into mechanical robots, or just forcefully move the sun and moon in their cycle to fast forward the planet's day and night. all of this possible thanks to Barney's sparkles and his wise mind. Because with 200 million years of life experience, abstract thinking is not out of the question. And considering all the previous feats were done by Barney the pacifist, let's take a second to imagine what horror a demonic and bloodlusted purple dinosaur could think of to best devour or kill their prey. If base Barney can unleash the full limits of their magic and cause actual earthquakes, and even control the weather through magical jars that carry all of the power of the 4 seasons, I have to imagine it would be terrifying. Barney also has things like the Barney bag that hold bottomless pocket dimensions of storage for any items or objects that he wishes for, or can act as a permanent death trap for unsuspecting victims to get pulled into. And despite all of this just being his imagination, Barney has literally created actual life, or even manipulated time itself. Barney was even able to make a baby egg hatch just from speeding up the aging process. While the blood demon art to literally conjure any idea that pops up into your brain is rightfully overpowered for an Upper Moon 2 like demon, at the end of the day, Barney himself is just a small pink dinosaur doll. Sure, Barney can return to this form at will to regenerate, sleep, or rest, even use it stealthily to hide in plain sight and seem like just a non-important toy. Barney is at his most vulnerable if attacked in this state. So while he's not indomitable, Barney is still a big problem. And even though Upper Moon 2 required all of that yap and in-depth explanation to justify why they were stronger than the other demons, Upper Moon 1 is gonna be a lot more cut and dry. The strongest demon of the PBS moons would obviously be the configuration of all 4 Teletubbies, or should I say, the Vassal of the End, a mere avatar of the Lovecraftian outer gods that embody all forbidden knowledge and madness that exists in this universe. Now, if you aren't familiar with the eldritch, horrific origins of the Teletubbies, I'm sorry to shatter the illusion of some kids show for you here, but these fucking demons are actually alien demigods from another dimension that have simply crash landed here and have chosen to nest on this planet that we call Earth. To them though, it's a lot more closer to like that of a stepping stone, like realistically a pebble or a rock that they might kick on their way down, you know, a street road, or an ant you might accidentally step on and not even realize you killed. They only merely happen to lie dormant on this planet by chance, and the inevitability of the destruction of this planet when they awake is undoubted. Like they didn't even know our planet was there. The form we see before us in this image wouldn't even be their true shape. It would merely just be a presence they have chosen to take so that our simple minds might comprehend their appearance without breaking from their incomprehensible forms. The televisions you see on their stomachs are merely portals to other dimensions, depicting horrific massacres or torture scenes that have either happened already or yet to happen at all, taking pure amusement in the idea that question even existing in your brain might potentially put you at unease. They move to the beat of their magical drum, and through its rhythm, the planet's axis shifts. The clouds stir and slide across the sky according to the god's will, at any point having the power to steer this planet's gravitational pull into the sun. But because we are so small in reference, the act of destroying our planet in such a manner would be the same as some child knocking down an anthill, done out of pure boredom and not out of any real memorable value or instinct. Is that an unrealistic amount of glaze for the fucking Teletubbies? We could have ended up with half a roster of Arthur and Busters. Just remember that when you think I was a little ridiculous in this one. One of the first questions that we need to ask is how the heck did Zoro from One Piece end up on both sides of the conflict? This man's sense of direction is so bad, Zoro somehow split himself into different timelines that will now have to fight each other in fully bloodlusted combat, which, to be fair, makes it pretty easy just to skip past him since he'll just cancel himself out in a group battle. Let's discuss the Nickelodeon espada first, and let me try my best at piecing together who would be ranks number 10 through 1. Now, it's pretty obvious looking at this picture that Tommy Pickles, of all people, would be espada number 9, the weakest one, I don't think I should even have to explain why that is and why an infant that isn't even potty trained is the weakest espada in a group of criminals. Not exactly sure how he even met the recruitment qualifications, if there are any. At best, Tommy can just stay back in like the lab and maybe invent or stuff like that. Listen, whatever job you give him, I'm sure Tommy will do it well. A baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do, right? But I would hope they do not put this child out on the battlefield anytime soon. Okay, so while editing, I actually found this video of Tommy Pickles parting the Red Sea. So, you know, do with that what you will. Espada 8 through 7, sharing 2 numbers between them, is gonna be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Apparently, Nickelodeon bought the rights and made their own series, which I didn't even know about. But it's obvious that these Ninja Turtles still kick fucking ass, right? All 4 of them are combat masters, fluent in all forms of violence like ninja weaponry, martial arts. You've got the leader, Leonardo. Maybe he's just Espada 7 himself and the other 3 can share number 8. He's a swordsman, real chill guy. Raphael's the hard ass. He uses 2 daggers. Sometimes he betrays the turtles in certain iterations of the story, but we forgive him for that every single time. Donatello, he's the smart one, can just hack into anything he wants, back in a time when the average person had literally no idea what hacking was and just pictured doing it as like the fucking Matrix screensaver or something. And last but not least, you've got Michelangelo, the funny guy with the nunchucks who talks about pizza all the time. I'm pretty sure they can like low-key regenerate over time. It just takes a while, and in some versions of the show, they even get elemental powers after being tricked into becoming guardian spirits from some dragon. Much better choice of espadas, at least better than Tommy Pickles of all people. But you know what? I'm not the one who called the shots here, so let's just move on. Skipping right up to espada number 6, we would probably put Avatar Aang. I would probably say he's a little bit more powerful than 4 Ninja Turtles. Some of the crazy things that he's able to do by the end of the series. The Avatar is one able to control all the elements of water, air, fire, and earth. And also, if you believe in the off-shooting bending styles, Aang also bends lava and metal. So not only is the Avatar able to call upon the different elements to defeat his enemies, he can also access the legendary Avatar state. And we've literally watched Aang basically demolish whole entire armies and entire war forces, almost plunging the entire North Pole water tribe in his wrath. And when he fought Fire Lord Ozai, the dude who, must I remind you, was literally just single-handedly burning down entire forests during Sozin's Comet, the Avatar managed to defeat the Fire Lord not just by killing him. Oh no, he took the hard way on this one. He chose the pacifist route and stole the Fire Lord's bending with chi manipulation, which reveals Aang's biggest flaw if he was ever in a criminal organization, which is that he refuses to take lives no matter how much they're against him or even if they're trying to kill him, which would definitely backfire, as it backfired on him multiple times in not just his own series, but his sequel series as well. Surprisingly, and don't crucify me for this, I think Zoro would only come in at espada number 5 or something. Let me tell you why before you start jumping me in the comments. Zoro is strong. One Piece has high scaling, I won't deny that. But all these other characters are so fucking ridiculous. Let's just move right past it and get into the person that I gave espada number 4, XJ9, otherwise known as Jenny fucking Wakeman. Let me ask you something. Is Rorona Zoro immune to heat-seeking lasers? Able to fight in space without any oxygen required? What about being able to survive full-on decapitation with the ability to just put yourself back together afterwards? I am sorry, but even if Zoro started to fight people for higher spots in the espada, I really don't think he would get that far. Unless this man like pops out Jenny's battery or something, electrocuting Jenny or throwing her into water, grabbing her head and like taking it and running away far enough that her body can't reattach it. Otherwise, Zoro is cooked, figuratively and literally. This girl's got a heat ray. She can turn her body into like a spider-armed swordsman at the flick of a wrist or launch catastrophic, probably nuclear level missiles. I have never once heard Jenny Wakeman complain about ammo, so I have to assume she has an unlimited resource of lasers, bullets, and whatever else she happens to have inside the pocket dimension that is her robot body. She can hack into any electronic because she is the fucking internet. She would also just be able to like Google search herself out of any situation or find any person person's weakness by looking it up. This is like Jenny Wakeman would be if Google Gemini turned evil and got put inside of a death robot. So like give it 5-10 years or something, you know? So as a robot that is like fighting other planet busting robots or aliens that are trying to conquer the universe, it's safe to say XJ9 is probably scaling a little bit higher than Zoro. Jenny Wakeman has casually taken full-size alien spaceships and literally just lassoed it and tossed it into the sun from the earth like it was nothing. It's safe to say that if they're trying to assess a major threat like Kurosaki Ichigo, they're not sending out Zoro, okay? Zoro can end up getting hurt. Not saying he would, but what does bro know about that stretchy arm and extendo fingers? And believe it or not, someone that would also be placing higher than Zoro and landing in the espada number 3 spot would be Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Jimmy would definitely be one of those glass cannon type characters, like one of those video game bosses when you fight them, they're behind a glass screen and they just throw mobs at you endlessly until they die. But it's not his physical strength that puts him in espada number 3. Oh no, it is his massive array of inventions and the ability to adapt to things on the fly. I mean, most of his inventions are made with common ordinary household objects or just things and random debris that he's able to find in the moment. Jimmy's capacity is not restricted to being in a lab. Even if he's on the field, he can figure shit out pretty quickly. One brain blast away from destroying the entire world. But we have to not even just consider some of the craziest situations Jimmy has put the entire world in, but also his ability to act as a support type ally for the rest of the espada. For example, there's multiple different creations like the Hypno Ray that just outright turns enemies into friends, a Shrink Ray that can change the size of not only himself, but others, whether it be for other people entering other people's bodies and attacking them from the inside, or just making someone so small they're literally not a threat anymore. Jimmy, like Jenny, has a hypercube with infinite amount of space to just store whatever he wants. Helpful in an anime fight, that's for sure. I have watched Jimmy literally heal all of the Weezers of their illnesses, their debilitations, and their physical issues with the Neutronic Health Boost tablets, or like the Maximum Headband to significantly accelerate someone's already crazy and insane physical potential. Jimmy literally invented a pain transfer helmet that lets you send pain not to someone that's like connected to some kind of other helmet, but literally to whoever you feel and please at the moment. If I haven't made the point, let's focus on what's important here. Jimmy has inventions that can not only make his allies stronger, but help them accomplish their goals stealthily, even heal them from cases of certain death if he needs to. And in the most extreme cases, this man has literally threatened the entire planet itself multiple times with his own inventions. The child created a nano saucer that just literally deletes people and converts them into data. Just don't trigger Jimmy's teenage angst, because then he will immediately start getting tilted, and that's a major disadvantage for the espada. Now, espada number 2, who is supposed to be the true king of Hueco Mundo, Danny Phantom. He might be the only one on the list that has fought a ghost that's actually able to split the entire universe in two, separating the ghost and human realms with their sword. You heard me, a fucking ghost named Fright Knight ripped the actual physical realm itself into separate universes that entirely all have their own alternate timelines and multiverses, which, if I need to spell it out for you, makes Danny Phantom fucking universal, baby. By the end of the series, Danny is manipulating ice and potentially the weather of the planet itself, mastering his insanely debilitating ghostly whale ability, firing different exoplasmic beams and blasts that literally just fucking vaporize people. And let's not forget, this man's a ghost. He can turn invisible, intangible, possess other people, you name it. But also, just like Jimmy, Danny has access to a bunch of crazy convenient gadgets for ghost hunting and just battle in general, thanks to his parents' Fenton technology. And their greatest invention, the ectoskeleton, is a 100 times multiplier buff to Danny's already universal busting strength. And keep in mind, we've still got 2 more motherfucking espada left, which I think are probably going to be the 2 most controversial picks of the entire video, but I need to have you guys hear me out. Let's just rip that band-aid off right now. Espada number 1, replacing Coyote Stark, Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents. First of all, Timmy is one of the first characters in the video to benefit from something called Toon Force to its fullest effects. What is Toon Force, you ask? Oh, my sweet, sweet summer child. Allow me to explain this to you now, because you're probably going to be hearing it a lot going forward. Toon Force is defined as the ability of a character manipulating reality or bypassing the physical laws of nature in order to achieve impossible feats for comedic effects. Things like a character getting obliterated into pure dust by an explosion and just returning to normal completely afterwards, being completely flattened by a rock and popping back up. But Toon Force can also refer to characters just breaking or acknowledging the fourth wall in general, and in extreme circumstances, and we'll be talking about some extreme circumstances, these characters will even alter the story entirely to suit them or others. Think Deadpool, but like on copious amounts of steroids. Now, Timmy Turner isn't the hugest practitioner of Toon Force. That being said, the kid survived having his entire head crushed, has dimensional sized pockets able to hide things in there with no restriction on size, done the little weird thing where they run in place in the air until they realize they're falling and then drop, but most impressively melted snow from pure anger and also spontaneously combusted from said anger. All of this just really makes Timmy essentially impossible to kill in an actual anime fight, but that's not what makes him rank above someone like Danny or Zoro. Do not underestimate this 10-year-old child. We have literally seen Timmy perform insane acrobatics and also strategize in like kind of real-time battle fights, like by taking advantage of his opponent's weak points or just tricking them into falling prey into his already set up traps. Combining all of that with the endless possibilities that Timmy's fairies Cosmo and Wanda offer him, it's a lethal trio we have here. The kind of wishes that Timmy Turner can make all just depend on how much the child wants to play with his food and how bloodlusted he is, which is funny to say. Timmy's been known to make wishes of swords, bows, and arrows, even things like heat vision. His fairyversary gifts alone are like an insanely OP arsenal of weapons. You've got the mirror that reflects all incoming attacks, Cupid's bow and arrow for making people fall in love and de-aggroing them, dumbass glasses that no one can tell who you are in. Timmy has at one point wished all life away on Earth, meaning any enemy he truly just wants to delete from life can just go poof, as long as it's like an inadvertent wish, like I send you billions of years away or into the future or into the past, or casually just wiped stars from the galaxy, even opening black holes with their fairy magic, that which, by the way, is, from what I have to imagine, endless as long as they are able to maintain their connection to the fairy world, which is a separate dimension and realm entirely. So just the average anime character is not going to be able to accomplish trans-dimensional travel until like the highest tiers. I mean, Cosmo and Wanda basically just casually create pocket dimensions in their own fishbowl, and that's just full-on spatial manipulation. There was that one special where they were fast-forwarding and rewinding and pausing time, so put that on the list. I'm pretty sure there was an episode where they accidentally changed the timelines by interfering with like fictional books, and they also went into the internet and TV and started messing with the real world that way. They're just able to bend reality to their whim. Put Timmy in a fight against an Akatsuki member. What stops Timmy from going, yeah, I wish this guy's power didn't work, or I wish my friend was fully healed and back to life, you know, or like I wish I was 5,000 times stronger than this guy and this guy was 5,000 times weaker than me. I need you to understand, Jimmy Neutron made it to the top 3 because all of the possibilities his inventions granted to him, and not just him but his allies. Imagine the kinds of buffs and debuffs that can come when all you gotta do is wish for it. Again, you don't have to make it. Not that waiting for Jimmy to make his inventions matters. I mean, at a certain point past Zoro, I'm pretty sure all of these characters qualify for being faster than light anyway, believe it or not. But Jimmy doesn't even need to verbally wish for things. He can shoot his fairies a look and they can catch what he's picking up and immediately just wish for it. Or because they just have minds of their own, they want to help Timmy to the best of their ability. So like they can just wish for things on their own or create things on their own if Timmy's not either one, fast enough to think of it himself or smart enough to think of it himself. Espada Timmy Turner was what that one rapper designer was talking about when he wrote that song that was popular like 10 years ago. And I think at this point, it's time to just get through Espada number 0. Let's just get through it. SpongeBob SquarePants. Everything I just said about Timmy Turner, give that to SpongeBob SquarePants. He can definitely match that. This block of sponge is just frankly immortal from all things I can tell. He's been blown to pieces, had all of his skin ripped off. He's been shown to literally continue talking, just being a pair of eyes or down to his brain. This man has literally just manipulated the space-kind continuum to create a whole entire new existence and body. And while you can argue that SpongeBob just has obscene toon force, I would actually beg to differ because there is genuine actual lore as to why SpongeBob cannot die. The Flying Dutchman, the Spongeverse's concept of death, who collects all lost souls on their way into the afterlife, refuses to ever reap SpongeBob's spirit due to having to spend eternity as a worker on the Dutchman's ship, being a fate worse than hell for the fucking concept of death. That sponge is so annoying that literally death itself said, nope, you can stay alive forever. I will continually revive you, SpongeBob, and make sure you never actually have to come to the afterlife. This is how SpongeBob is able to do things like work for all of eternity and not die. Literally, no matter the reason, whether it's from age, from being stabbed, Flying Dutchman will just bring him back. And when you actually remember that when SpongeBob is trying, he's one of the strongest characters in all of existence. I mean, this man flipped a Krabby Patty into literally the bounds of reality itself, just ripping through the fabric of space. We've seen him use his natural affinity to be a sponge to literally just absorb like anything I've seen at this point. He's also been able to split into millions of equally powerful duplicates that all share a hive mind, or even get so tiny that he can enter other people's bodies or minds and affect their dreams or organs from within. Also, if you've ever seen any person try to actually do damage or harm to SpongeBob, the man has been shown to have some kind of supernatural luck stat or just some kind of madness manipulation, because genuinely speaking, every character I've ever seen try to kill SpongeBob has failed, and not only have they failed multiple times through just obscene reasons, they have been driven insane trying to accomplish it. I mean, just look what SpongeBob did to fucking Squidward. Ugh. Also, don't forget, SpongeBob is a master at karate, so don't even try to pull some shit in the comments like he wouldn't be able to fight. He's not a fighter. If you still don't see why SpongeBob has already surpassed the universe busters of the espada so far, that's just because you didn't realize SpongeBob's a universe buster yourself. Did you miss the episode where SpongeBob and Patrick hugged each other so hard their fucking cells fused together, merging all anatomical life in Bikini Bottom and bending the laws of nature just for the fucking fun of it? Oh, you didn't watch the episode where SpongeBob accidentally unraveled the entire universe itself by pulling on a fucking string. I think SpongeBob works really perfectly as the Espada Zero, because when he's not serious, he's a blithering idiot who can't really cause too much harm physically. But when he gets serious, he could literally just unravel the universe. And that is all 10 Nickelodeon Espada. Actually, pretty strong. Surprisingly, stronger than the original Espada, albeit slightly tilted in more of the last four's favor. Personally, I think there are better alternatives to throw in here, like El Tigre, honorable mention. I mean, Nickelodeon literally owns the rights to Rayman and the Rabbids, so why didn't we think of him? What about the dude from Chalk Zone? I'm like pretty damn sure that piece of goddamn chalk would be universal if you tried. You're telling me that Otis from the Barnyard wasn't even in talks at the round table when it came time for recruitment? Look, no hate, Darent, love your work, but next time you're filling out the anime villain roster, give me a call, because I've got some unreasonably strong opinions about this. In Fullmetal Alchemist, the homunculi are immortal beings born from philosopher stones, effigies created from hundreds of human souls using alchemy. Until the stone wastes all of its massive life force, the homunculi can live for centuries, all while wielding their supernatural powers indiscriminately thanks to their colossal amount of stamina. There are 8 homunculi: Father, the original homunculus, and his 7 children, each representing one of the 7 deadly sins. We'll be figuring out what sin best represents the different children under 3 cartoon characters we have on our list, as well as explaining how powerful each of these individual homunculi would be with their newly gifted powers. Since, let's be honest, some of them are really gonna need it. To start Nick Jr. off strong, we've got Sporticus, who is a very clear choice for the sin of pride, the original sin, and the first homunculi created by Father. Sporticus is the healthiest and most fit person in Lazy Town, and he never lets anybody forget that. In fact, Sporticus flies his Zeppelin above Lazy Town and pops down to command the peasants to exercise and be as cool as him. Sportacus is obviously quite prideful about his physical condition, which is why he makes the most sense. But like Pride and Full Metal Alchemist, Sportacus is also a pretty powerful character in his own right. His muscular physique is not just for show, as Sportacus has shown extreme feats of strength, such as when he used a single kick to push a leaning tower back in place, or lifted a whole pyramid with his bare hands. Not only does this mean Sportacus would be able to lift an entire city block, he's survived explosions caused by Robbie Rotten that have launched people to the moon and could have potentially destroyed all of Lazy Town. Sportacus is able to perform these superhuman actions thanks to the stat boost he receives when eating his quote-unquote sports candy, which is actually just fruit and veggies. While amplified by sports candy, Sportacus is able to break his average physical limits. His hovering over top Zeppelin is also able to care package drop Sportacus whether he's gotten a 4-person kill streak or not, meaning he always has access to weapons or sports candy when he needs it. Combine Sportacus's strength with Pride's shadow powers, the new homunculus might even surpass the original. And considering Sportacus can already home run apples to the moon with a baseball bat, I'd hate to see what he can do when Sportacus can just manipulate Lazy Town shadows and force them to exercise forever. Unfortunately, not every homunculus can be a winner, as our best stand-in for Envy, the evil and conniving shape-shifting homunculus, is Wow Wow Wubsy. Why? Well, a quick skim through most of Wubsy's episodes revolve around Wubsy being jealous of others for the most part and just making mistakes because of it, or wanting to be able to do a certain hobby or talent and just not being as good as someone else and feeling bad about it. Besides having a long and bent tail, which is his only distinguishable trait, Wubsy is ultimately pretty useless in his own series, especially when you consider actions that might be viable in an anime fight. Envy's original power of being able to transform into a giant monster, as shown in the actual artwork Darent created, is probably Wubsy's best bet of being a threat in battle. Now, in his show, some of Wubsy's friends might have tools or objects that could be of use to him should he steal them before crossing into the FMA universe, such as his neighbor Widget, who has once developed a cloning machine to create an army of Wubsies, or a hat that, once put on, makes that person think and act like Wubsy. There's also a man named Mumu the Magician, who has the magical potential to threaten the entire city of Wuzzleberg. While sleepwalking, Mumu could make entire buildings disappear, and he's even shown himself capable of teleporting to other locations. Not only has Wubsy taken magic lessons from Mumu, if Wubsy steals Mumu's wand, he gains all of that magical power, albeit without any of the experience or knowledge of how to use it properly. But if Mumu can threaten the entire town while sleepwalking, Wubsy might be even more dangerous not knowing what he's doing with the wand than if he was. Now, homunculi stand-ins like Kailan from Nihao Kailan are actually much more impressive than you would think. Kailan is a 6-year-old girl who's able to befriend and talk with animals. This power to talk with different species goes one step further, as Kailan is one of the many cartoon characters on this list that is actually able to connect with the 4th dimension and directly communicate with those higher beings. Kailan is aware of these entities, known as the quote-unquote Watchers, and able to reach into separate dimensions from her own. Not only is she able to freeze all time so she can converse with these higher beings, she is able to gain emotional wisdom and answers on how to properly handle situations from them. If the viewers actually always give Kailan the best advice possible, and she can constantly stop the world around her to get this information with no drawbacks at all, her battle intelligence and overall problem solving could be unmatched. But Kailan is able to do more than just communicate through dimensions, as she also displays a modicum of control over her own dimension as well, being the one responsible for the sun rising every single morning in her galaxy, due to Kailan reaching all the way up to it out in space and tickling the giant star to apparently awaken every day. Not only does this imply Kailan's range could cover the whole solar system itself, but what would make Kailan a full and dangerous package would be super speed, something that she would gain from being our chosen representative of the Sin Sloth. His blinding speed is impossible for most humans to keep up with, and since since Kylon never solves any of her own problems and always makes the Watchers do it for her, I felt the Sin of Sloth makes the most sense. As for the Sin of Gluttony, the closest choice on the roster was the two representatives from Team Umizoomi, Bot and Millie. Why gluttony? Well, to define the sin, gluttony is the act of eating or drinking to excess, or to the point of waste. I don't know about you, but I feel like the amount of knowledge that it takes to consume every single facet and idea behind mathematics is in and of itself an overindulgence in sin. Don't believe me? Talk to or remember a time you've talked to a math major. Remember how crazy that person was? Exactly. Poor dot connecting aside, Team Umizoomi is, as you guessed it, a show to teach kids all about math, which would be really weird if that wasn't the case, and I went on that whole previous tangent for nothing at all. The team of 3 heroes look for children in need of help, and using the power of math are able to solve their problems in a way that benefits everyone involved. So besides their obvious high intelligence, they are superheroes and definitely have higher than average physical stats. Bot is the team's friendly robot that acts as their calculation machine, as well as seemingly bottomless portable storage space. Not for nothing, makes me think it was the perfect call to make Team Umizoomi the replacement for Gluttony, because that is legitimately the homunculi power that Bot would get anyway. Checkmate. Bot can use the screen on his belly to locate the people in need or look for specific things. The tools its robot body also has consist of vacuums, rope, or even full-on medical and surgical tools that can easily heal wounds on allies. And despite Millie missing her other intelligent half in the boy Geo, the only thing Team Umizoomi would be missing is another mind to help solve equations. Millie has been shown to build objects before without Geo, meaning her mathematical powers aren't nerfed in the slightest by his absence. Millie can fight enemies off with karate, also use her pigtails in combos that are able to extend and stretch out as weapons themselves, and these pigtails are able to shapeshift on their own, transforming into rulers, scales, and other measurement tools. Millie can cause a target to grow or shrink according to the calculations that she comes to, once defeating a villain simply by measuring their current size and counting down their measurements until he's shrunk down to her level. At the extreme, Millie's math powers can also border on reality warping abilities that allows Millie to manipulate existing patterns or create ones where they don't already exist. By building these patterns or changing them, Millie can alter environments entirely to escape impossible situations or change people's appearances, even her own. Team Umizoomi has also been known to break the fourth wall, making them trans-dimensional beings to some degree as well. And speaking of trans-dimensional beings, there is no better group of characters, in my opinion, that fit the bill of the Sin of Wrath than the group of Backyardigans, who have for some reason traded their women characters for Max Bunny from Max and Ruby. Max Bunny is a relentless and pathological force of nature that stops at nothing to get what he wants, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. The entire premise of Max and Ruby is Ruby trying to keep Max under control, but at the end of every episode, whether it be by sneaking right by Ruby with masterful strategy and intelligence, convincing another rabbit to join him as an ally and use them as a distraction or some type of partner in a heist, and for the jobs that are said to be impossible, Max has been known to completely transform into a being known as Super Max. And according to Ruby, Super Max and his partner Zoom Zoom, otherwise known as Morris, have saved the entire planet before. But Max's mind does not just allow him to take on different personalities with supernatural powers. Oh no, it's not just a great way to strategize against other groups of kids for tag. It also has the mental capacity to conjure imaginary friends with powers of their own. And this is where the Backyardigan trio of Tyrone, Pablo, and Barris come in. The Backyardigans are famous for being able to completely warp the planes of reality with their imaginations, manifesting massive scapes of land, sea, or even outer space areas, crafting distinct narratives and unique ecosystems and habitats within them. Some of these pocket dimensions have been shown to contain their own star systems, as well as multiple different planets. And this power can even be extended into the normal world, shown when Tyrone and Pablo completely dissolve a slide within a cannon of green ooze. But what's even more dangerous is the Backyardigans' ability to take the role of any job or being they see fit, as well as completely inherit any and all stats that position would require. Some of them have even placed themselves as gods in their imaginary landscapes, such as when Tasha shook an entire island with her volcanic eruptions, or when Spaceman Pablo literally smacked the moon away with a tennis racket. Because of this versatility, the Backyardigans can do almost anything they set their mind to. And because they can affect others' realities as well, shown when Uniqua is transformed into a soccer monster just by making contact with one of Pablo's soccer balls, their power can even influence beings of equal dimensional power to their own. So even cartoon characters with Toon Force could even be at risk against the Backyardigans. Also, Austin the Kangaroo is just Barris now. So add being a god of destruction that could easily blow up the entire universe to the list. As Max's imaginary friends, the Backyardigan trio of Beerus, Pablo, and Tyrone buff the young rabbit's power tremendously. And together, the four of them can exert their wrath on any who get in their way, whether they like it or not. However, this ability to bring imagination to life pales in comparison to the two strongest homunculi of the family, Steve from Blue's Clues and Dora the Explorer. While previous homunculi might have been able to peer into the fourth dimension and potentially communicate with them, Dora the Explorer is able to utilize the power of the quote-unquote Watchers to their fullest extent and even bring their physical influence into reality. Through the powers of the Blue Pointer, not only is Dora able to converse with these higher dimensional beings and utilize their knowledge to solve complex problems and puzzles she otherwise could not, Dora is able to have the Blue Pointer actually affect the physical plane, manipulating other beings' existences or inanimate objects and moving them, altering the natural course of her dimension by allowing these Watchers to interfere with obstacles in Dora's path. Like Kailan, time completely stops so Dora can receive these divine revelations that are never wrong. But on top of the blue clicker, Dora can make use of the two other eldritch entities that can warp existence to Dora's benefit. And these two tools are known as the Map, an omniscient scroll that can change its content to lead Dora through any location or towards any object, whether it be over land, sea, or even outer space itself, and Dora's Backpack, which, according to the song it sings, is a backpack who has gained sentience and can use its insides as a bottomless pocket dimension that will contain any object needed for Dora to deal with the situation in front of her. Anything you need, I've got inside for you. Are you calling Backpack a fucking liar? However, the other side of the coin is just as insane. Compare that to the Lovecraftian god that is Steve from Blue's Clues, who on a mere whim can use Skidoo, some unknown power that can allow Steve to transcend the astral plane. It all around just allows Steve to transcend literally any plane he wants. Steve can grow or shrink himself on command to fit into any realm or pocket dimension he desires, and breathe life into one's inanimate objects such as books, paintings, or even simple drawings, and convert them into entire worlds that Steve can then enter and manipulate at his own will. These universes sometimes contain sentient life with no understanding that they've been created as mere playthings for Steve, who will abandon them by the end of the episode and, if they're lucky, simply forget them and let them live on their lives. The man was able to traverse the solar system in little to no time at all in service of changing and rearranging the planet's positions as he sang a musical performance. And the fact Steve is able to travel anywhere he wants means no one is safe. Not even the Watchers from the fourth dimension, whose hearts were all broken by his leave to college. Steve can not only just skidoo himself, but others as well, meaning he can just lock people away in these dimensions forever if he doesn't want to just kill them outright. These two homunculi alone definitely make a humongous difference in the overall power level of the 7 deadly sins. And that's just off their own merit alone, as Dora the Explorer not only has special help from beings like the Estrellas, superpowered stars that can save her in a pinch and somehow always have the exact solution she needs, be it the Tool Star who has the exact object or weapon she'll need at the time, or the Hero Star that can help her fight physical battles. And because of Dora's insatiable desire for exploration and conquest, Dora will gain all the extra power of her chosen sin, greed, which is hardening the carbon in her body to heavily buff her physical stats, from a young child to that of an Arnold Schwarzenegger level Skynet Terminator. And since Steve left his dog Blue and his beloved fans behind to go get his dick wet in college, the man is obviously the representative for Lust. Why else does anybody go to college? As Lust, Steve can grow his fingers really sharp and long like spears, which isn't really the most helpful power in battle, but doubling as an all-powerful outer dimensional being is more than enough for him. And with our set of 7 sins completed, it is time to introduce our father, who, in the most anticlimactic turn of events, is shown to be Peppa fucking Pig. I'll be honest, I combed through hours of Peppa Pig, probably more than I should have. This pig doesn't do shit besides having a death note, and that the average pig can rip off a full-grown man's arm if they're hostile enough. Compared to the 7 sins, Peppa Pig's really not the all-powerful father figure they need to lead them. I guess if we say she gets father's canon mastery over the country's alchemy, since all the sins get their homunculi powers, that does bump Peppa up the food chain a little bit, but if these sins end up betraying father like some of the others did, things could go very, very bad for Peppa Pig. Now, the difference between the Akatsuki and Espada is, as far as anime crime organizations go, the Akatsuki don't rank the members in terms of strength like the Espada do. They get paired into duos to watch each other's backs as they target monsters called tailed beasts, creatures that have been known to terrorize entire countries. Therefore, all of the Akatsuki need to meet a certain quota level of power in order to rival the strongest ninjas in the world. So instead of a ranking type video, I'll be comparing the cartoon stand-ins to the original Akatsuki teams, and to see how these new matchups fit as a 2-man squad. Most importantly, if they're strong enough to accomplish their job of capturing a tailed beast. So that way, the Cartoon Network Akatsuki can awaken the 10 tails. Forgive me, I mean Jake the dog. Let's start with the very first Akatsuki team that we run into during the main series of Naruto, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki, replaced here by Finn the Human and the Gumball Darwin combo respectively. Now, the first thing you'll notice about Gumball and Darwin is they are about the most inconceivable instance of Toon Force I think I might have ever seen. Gumball and Darwin are able to manipulate space, create pocket dimensions, teleport well past the speed of light, and recover their bodies from literally just being minced into liquid, the usual. But where it gets fucking insane is when Gumball breaks the viewer's TV screen and reverses time back to the very beginning of the universe, as if it was just another Tuesday for him. There is even an entire arc in the show where another character takes Gumball's protagonist role, and it's just heavily implied that the balance of his entire fucking universe is held in the palm of the show's main protagonist. It's subconscious, you know, he can't do it purposely. He can, he just doesn't realize. It doesn't change the fact that if Gumball just gives up one day or something, the entire physical realm as we know it just crumbles and falls apart entirely. He's like fucking Azathoth, the blind idiot god from the Cthulhu mythos, the being that is asleep and is dreaming just the entire universe, and then one day he's just gonna wake up and everything just goes. Yeah, that's fucking Gumball. Also, he has the power to judge you based on political correctness and conjure a sword made out of pure self-righteousness to kill you with. This is a children's show, by the way. Now, Finn, the human from Adventure Time, much more grounded character, kind of. Yeah, sure. Finn does wield a sword fueled by the essence of Hunson Abadir, Lord of Evil, an eldritch being comparable to other cosmic entities such as the Lich, Adventure Time's concept of death, a cosmic being capable of destroying all life in the universe. But the difference is, by the end of his series, Finn has done everything he can to earn that planet-destroying power. Finn has had multiple adventures where he survived certain death from intense heat, sheer cold ice, having his soul stolen or his body transmutated into another being entirely, but every time, Finn comes back unscathed, matching the power of his shapeshifter dog, Jake, who has even shown the power to just obliterate mountains. Finn's also just a master at a bunch of different martial arts styles, or he's even a ninja, he's a wizard, he's been trained by sword masters. It all just feels like a much more honest character to have in an anime fight. And then there's just Gumball and Darwin, who have literally just glared hard enough at living beings to inflict death upon them. Now, they do have episodes where they show themselves as extremely capable, like when they worked their way up to being CEOs of a major company and became rich in only a year, or performed successful organ transplants, despite all of the organs being invisible. So as honest as you would want to make them in a fight, especially considering Gumball and Darwin are always going to try and run away before actually fighting, because if they can take the easy way out, they will. This is still the same character who conjured a fucking death note that just rewrites reality. So needless to say, this Akatsuki duo would cripple their assigned tailed beasts. Finn would probably end up doing all the work, sure, but if Gumball and Darwin ever got into danger, it's instant death for anything involved. Canonically, the next team we see would be Sasori and Deidara. Zetsu does technically appear at the end of the first series, but Zoro's taking his place apparently. So that makes our next tag team Steven Universe and Ben 10. Every single person that knows Ben Tennyson's scaling just collectively gasped and said it's over for Nickelodeon. But hold on, let's explain to all of the people who have understood and known the feeling of love before why Ben 10 is busted. Ben 10 is most famously known for being a kid that was unwittingly bestowed the Omnitrix, a gauntlet slash wristwatch type situation that lets Ben transform into numerous different alien species, and later on even add unknown species into his roster of transformations. Ghost Freak was always my favorite, but we don't talk about him anymore. Using these various alien life forms, and sometimes with the help of other extraterrestrials or even his family members, Ben is able to conquer galactic warlords like Vilgax, who have reigned over a galaxy for like 2 centuries, as well as other impressive feats depending on the version of the show you're watching. I mean, he wielded the sword of Ascalon, a blade that possesses the power to defeat destroyers of galaxies. And it's crazy to think that in this point of the series of videos, a character like Ben fucking 10 being able to destroy entire galaxies shouldn't even be a surprise anymore. But why is Ben 10 so renowned in the power scaling community? It's because of one particular alien transformation. Alien X. To give you the short description, Alien X is just literally the embodiment and concept of reason and logic as a whole. And by that, I mean Alien X controls the existence of the entire universe and every other universe at its fingertips. Able to recreate the universe from scratch purely off of the mere thought of the action alone, Alien X is also capable of changing the genetic makeup of all species or ethnically cleansing planets by warping the populations billions of light years away from that current location. The actual shape and visage of Alien X isn't even really present. It's merely just an avatar of the colossal essence of the entity that actually lives in a whole separate plane of existence that is known as, and I fucking quote you, the debate dimension. So you can't even kill Alien X if you wanted to, let alone even if you somehow were able to enter the debate dimension. Alien X actually isn't even just Ben, but the combination of 3 minds. Ben is only one of the pillars that make up Alien X. So they have to duke it out with a giant monster that can either think you out of existence entirely or just casually step through a planet on accident and kill you trying to stomp on you. Now obviously, Ben isn't always just going to whip out Alien X like he's Megami calling Maharaga out in Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's important to remember what the fuck this man is capable of if push comes to shove. A tailed beast isn't gonna do much against the concept of reason as a whole. And then there's Steven Universe, who, although being a pretty powerful contender to have in the Cartoon Network Akatsuki overall, is kind of overshadowed by his teammate Ben. I mean, once you discuss a character that literally just embodies the idea of logic itself, it's hard to seem cool in comparison. That being said, in the grand scheme of things, Steven Universe would probably be able to fight a tailed beast all on his own if we're considering his power level by the end of his series. Steven Universe is a hybrid entity, half human and half of a race of beings known as gems. Growing into his role of being a protector of humanity, Steven has come to fully understand and control his gem powers and use them in ways that make him a significant threat in battle. By using Steven's signature weapon, his shield, he can reflect all attacks for defense and launch the shield as a projectile for offense. These shields cost no stamina at all for Steven to repeatedly conjure, and he can even summon them for other people. As a gem, Steven can also summon small or large pink bubbles that are also capable of shape-shifting at his whim, making giant barriers for allies or converting the bubbles into weapons with spikes or boxing gloves. Steven is exceptional off the battlefield as well, where he would probably be the best asset for the Akatsuki, as Steven can astral project himself to stealthily surveil those who can't see the intangible. With his pink gem powers, Steven's saliva also carry properties of life, healing others from significant injuries or even from death if Steven's emotions are strong enough, and Steven's saliva can also create life through nature and vegetation that can also become strong allies that can rival his fellow gems or be given complex commands. Now, when it comes to fighting a tailed beast that have terrorized multiple countries and can rearrange mountainscapes with their Biju bombs, the closest Steven Universe has ever appeared to this kind of strength is either when he's in his pink state or fully become the representation of his emotional distress, the giant kaiju monster. As it's in these rage forms, although Steven is no longer in control and his unstable emotions and trauma get the better of him, his physical stats and potential are amplified significantly. To the point Steven is moving so quickly, all time seems to freeze around him and after images are burned behind him. The pink state also leads to Steven releasing terrorizing screams that shatter the floor of entire warships or create even stronger bubbles that could threaten an entire city. Or when Steven becomes the monster kaiju, his awakening shakes the entire planet. Obviously, with Steven becoming inconsolable in the pink state or kaiju state, these instances aren't ideal, so for a partnership, at least Steven has Ben to rely on for help, so he doesn't have to go too far. Our replacements for Hidan and Kakazu are the Mordecai-Rigby team-up matched with Wirt from Over the Garden Wall. All I have to say is thank God that Mordecai and Rigby only count as one member because yeesh, we thought Ben was carrying the slack in that previous duo, and that's even being mean to Steven Universe. But now we've got Wirt, who at best, the only feat I can prescribe is having the courage to stand up to a paranormal entity known as the Beast. Maybe reject its manipulation tactics, but like that's literally it. Watch Over the Garden Wall. I don't know what else you want me to say here. Focusing on the real heroes of this quote-unquote duo, Mordecai and Rigby are surprisingly pretty fucking capable if they're placed in an anime world. Can they take on a whole-ass tailed beast? I don't know. Let's check the stats. First of all, the two of them are Death Kwon Do masters, which bestow the user with the power of literally just fucking Hakkaiing people in a single punch or kick. And when Mordecai and Rigby fight with their respective Death Kwon Do styles, they're creating pillars of energy that are just rippling through the town and almost wiping it off the map. They've also been blessed by the gods of basketball, giving them damn near the speed of light as they're able to fly to Jupiter and back in like moments. Now, as much of a joke the series of regular show is, you can't deny that when given the fists of fucking justice, they were able to combat universe-ending threats. And even in situations of the timeline warping or reality altering, Mordecai and Rigby both know what's going on and remember how things used to be, nullifying outright reality warping powers. Also, not for nothing, the two of them are drawn with the power, a musical instrument that allows the two of them to take control of literally anyone they want or make anything they say happen, even like being teleported to the moon or making Benson give them a raise. And if none of that works, they can just start a rap battle with the enemy and defeat them by making the loser dead ass just spontaneously combust. So while someone like Steven Universe is pretty damn strong, they might just need a little bit of backup against a tailed beast. Mordecai and Rigby are literally picking up all the slack for their partner Wirt, and unfortunately, they aren't the only ones in this Akatsuki, because since the all-out battle between cartoon verses requires us to have Zoro fight Zoro and be canceled out, he can't make up for any of the slack on this criminal organization, just like the real Zetsu, funnily enough, so at least he plays the role well. But even our Toby stand-in, the guy guy who's supposed to be the big secret bad of everything is reduced to being 3 bears all trying to fit in a cloak and act like one single person? The 3 brothers in We Bear Bears would literally just get the same useless treatment that I gave to Wirt from Over the Garden Wall. If not for them being apex fucking predators, I don't think I would have much to say. Like, at the very least, they could maul Wirt from Over the Garden Wall, so that puts them above that level. But that doesn't really say much, does it? The 3 bears do get into some crazy hijinks in their cartoon, like the polar bear being super smart and making mechanical upgrades to a Roomba to turn it into a death machine that can shoot electricity or attack people with axes, or when the panda's braces just give him magnetic attraction to literally becoming full-on telepathy, allowing him to fly or create large meteorites out of collected smartphones that could threaten entire city blocks. But like, again, they're just bears. At the most, they fought like robots and stuff in their show. One-tailed beast bomb, their whole show is off the map. And not only is the Cartoon Network Akatsuki lacking a proper Toby replacement, the leadership duo of Pain and Conan also suffers heavy losses. Conan is replaced by Tulip Olsen. Who? From fucking Infinity Train. What can she do? Code really well? Fight mechs and stuff? How did some of these people pass the Akatsuki entrance exam? Are we, as a Cartoon Network Akatsuki, that desperate as a criminal organization? We don't even have a set standard of qualifications for joining? We had the whole Teen Titans to pick from. I feel like the Powerpuff Girls are a good choice. Give me Courage the Cowardly Dog, Samurai Jack, the Grim Reaper from Billy and Mandy, and I will personally bring your criminal organization back to the fucking top. I'm talking NBA Finals, Darent. Have your manager call me. Hit me up. So last but not least, we have Uncle Grandpa stepping in as our Pain replacement. I guess that's fair that every person in the world's uncle and their grandpa would lead this organization, but also the fact that he's kind of like Gumball, as in he's an entity that exists as the actual pillar of his universe. Uncle Grandpa as a concept has infected the different planes of existence so much he has come to possess the gods and devils and fully consume and become their form. Uncle Grandpa exists as multiple things at once, but also not at all. Sometimes the children he helps don't remember he's their Uncle Grandpa until after he's been around them long enough and influenced them. This ability to also clone himself and take the place of other big entities in the world is shown to take place separate from Uncle Grandpa's own will as an own autonomous feature. Even limbs or pieces of himself that become separated will just take on lives of their own and eventually grow into their own version of Uncle Grandpa. It's unknown if Uncle Grandpa is like aware of all of this power he possesses, or if he's so diabolical his innocent personality is all a facade, as the man does catastrophic actions such as create entire pocket dimensions just by painting on t-shirts or making faces that cause others to erupt in an endless laughter that only ends with the victim dying from explosion without any second thought. Uncle Grandpa has even just caused tears in the space-time continuum, quote unquote, on accident. It's quite possible Uncle Grandpa is the perfect evil leader for an anime criminal organization due to his supreme need to dominate everything around him and force his way into people's lives as an important person. At any point in time, Uncle Grandpa can just take the world and shake it up for his amusement. I mean, he literally like has a button that just turns the entire world upside down. I'm not doing shtick. Like, why would you even have a button like that if you weren't a dick? Just like all his other Toon Force members, Uncle Grandpa is impossible to kill, basically. Being vaporized, decapitated, dude just acts like nothing happened at all. But again, Uncle Grandpa not only controls everything, I remind you, he is everything. If you continually pull back the facade from the Uncle Grandpa show, even the editor that works on the show is Uncle Grandpa. And if I peel back one more layer, you're Uncle Grandpa too. Will this group of old school cartoon legends be able to compare with the original espionage and assassination driven CP9? A group of Rokushiki masters who at one point in time gave their headquarters Enies Lobby a reputation for being unconquerable. One of the first things that you're gonna notice is that for once, Rorona Zoro has not felt it necessary to butt into a universe he has no business being in. However, unlike the other villain organizations, the Boomerang CP9 just might be one of the most tilted groups of all time and not even need the extra buff from Zoro. By the time we're halfway through this video, I think you'll see why Zoro deadass just might not have even made the cut. We do need to get through the beginning to get there though, and that means discussing why in the hell we've got Smurfette on the team. Now, if you're not familiar with the little blue people called Smurfs, you really aren't missing too much, but essentially they're little wood fairy gnome things that live peacefully in the forest, and the local wizard, Gargamel, just fucking hates that. And Smurfette was Gargamel's way of making them destroy themselves, because all Smurfs are genetically male. By using different magical components and creating Smurfette, she was born to turn all the blue people into incels until they ate themselves like an Ouroboros snake or a 4chan pole board. But like, to be clear, she's still the size of a garden decoration, and considering her and the entire Smurf village was almost wiped off the map in a simple ankle-high flood, I really don't see a scenario where she is a key player in the CP9. She's probably either there because they all felt bad for her, or she had to get away from Smurf society as fast as possible because all the alpha Smurfs would not stop drawing green lines over each other's selfies to see who held frame better. I will be giving Smurfette the benefit of the doubt because, not for nothing, they girl bossed her the fuck up during these most recent Smurf movies, making her the kung fu master to all the other Smurfs who could even fight on par with Azriel the cat. And because she's made of pure magic and like not a real Smurf, Smurfette has been shown to absorb magical particles or energy and reflect it back onto her opponents. And technically speaking, Papa Smurf could have taught her a thing or two about alchemy. It makes a lot of sense that some of these lower tier CP9 members are going to require the canon feat of Rokushiki powers. Rokushiki is a technique that all CP9 members are required to master, said to give them strength comparable to 100 men. And especially when Smurfette's followed up by other roster fillers like Top Cat or Muttley from Wacky Races, you can see why this is necessary. Because besides running from the law and being the sometimes successful, sometimes incompetent leader of a gang of back alley delinquents, after coming through his whole show, the nicest thing I can really say about Top Cat is that he's a smooth talker, always coming up with the next get-rich-quick scheme and duping the elites of society to try and get ahead, although he's never quite actually succeeded in any of these heists. Top Cat's crafty enough to at least never get caught, something he had better hope he keeps up in the CP9, because I've watched bro get knocked unconscious by a home run baseball. He is not handling no pirate with a devil fruit. And without Muttley's owner, Dick Dastardly, the dog isn't much more either than a clueless animal that lacks direction. In the cartoon Wacky Races, the mastermind that comes up with all of the evil inventions is Dick Dastardly. Muttley is almost always just there for the ride as Dick's lackey, being completely nonverbal, and at best, I've seen the dog twirl his tail around so fast he can make it act like a helicopter. So to make things a little bit more fair, even though Muttley isn't capable of building any new inventions or coming up with new strategies, at the very least, we'll let him come well prepared with all of the inventions Dick has already made for him, such as the Mean Machine, a race car that can cause mass destruction with its various assortments of giant drills, even cannons that launch missiles or explosive canisters, and if the battle goes underground, Muttley is able to use the SS Dirty Tracks, which has dug to the actual center of the earth before and fired lasers that are known to melt down any known object. Muttley might not be smart enough to use all of these inventions at their full capacity. I'd say Muttley using some of these inventions without any know-how or supervision is more dangerous than if Dick was to use them correctly. And considering the dog's toon force gives him the durability to survive catastrophic explosions, it's safe to say whatever cataclysm Muttley accidentally strolls himself into, he's gonna be at least marked safe on Facebook from it. Which is why I say that if you really want characters like this defending Any's lobby, you have to give them physical stat buffs like Rokushiki, or just intelligence in general so they can fight back. Because even whole-ass war veterans like Fred Flintstone, when left to their own devices, are essentially powerless in their base form. Fred is another character that sports, sure, a huge durability level, constantly surviving the prehistoric horrors of his time period, like being crushed by boulders or being hit full force by grown dinosaurs. And as a soldier that was in the Bedrock Wars, Fred definitely has no doubt taken the life of an enemy before, tasting the lust of blood and becoming highly trained in multiple different styles of of lethal combat and weaponry. And yeah, you heard me. I literally said weaponry. What? Is it that hard to believe these indigenous people were able to come up with things like modern warfare? They didn't just use big wooden clubs, you uneducated bigot. The Flintstones actually had prehistoric pistols and rifles that, instead of ammo, used rocks and pebbles for ammunition. But yeah, besides that Bedrock War street cred, and the fact that I know bro's got the worst possible bunions known to man on those feet from dragging that car around all day, these first couple of Boomerang CP9 members are pretty disappointing, to say the least. All of them are taking up space on the roster as more liabilities than anything else. But remember when I said things are gonna start tilting in the other direction real fucking quick? Well, let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Ultra Instinct Shaggy. If you're unfamiliar with Ultra Instinct, which at this point there's been so many goddamn memes I would think you were living under a rock if you're not, it's a battle transformation said to rival and even surpass the gods of destruction in Dragon Ball's universe. By clearing one's mind of all thoughts and letting instinct guide their palms, a user of Ultra Instinct can dodge any and all attacks that come their way effortlessly. And just to be clear, the reason they're called gods of destruction is because on a good day for Barris, he might destroy a planet or two. On Barris's worst day, the whole fucking universe could be at stake. And just being in Ultra Instinct alone puts Shaggy higher on the totem pole than Barris, God of Destruction, or even Super Saiyan God Goku himself. Two characters who, when clashing punches, had the attack potency to obliterate the entire universe if they accidentally missed each other and stopped colliding at any point. So yes, before going any further in this video, we do indeed have to confirm that Shaggy Rogers, the stoner Rizlord himself, is fucking universal, baby. That's twice. But aside from Shaggy's new power-up, even in the Scooby-Doo verse, the legend of Ultra Instinct Shaggy can be heard whispered to children as cautionary bedtime tales, reminding young ones to never eat the last Scooby snack in the pack should Ultra Instinct Shaggy bust a cap in that ass. Shaggy has been able to effortlessly dodge multiple attacks from a group of violent bikers, or even scale a cliff by jumping from falling rock to rock, confirming this amazing strength has always lied dormant in the Chosen One. Shaggy has also once done battle before with the Black Samurai, an ancient warrior spirit that was said to shake the heavens and earth in his prime. And at this point, Shaggy was only fast enough to run on water or compete with the Mystery Machine. Now that he's an Ultra Instinct, Shaggy's speed should compare to the gods themselves, massively exceeding the speed of light. Combining this extreme speed with Shaggy's flexible body, somehow always able to twist or contort in inhuman ways to stealthily hide Shaggy behind any object or surface, it becomes ever more clear that Ultra Instinct Shaggy also has some level of control over the bounds of reality itself. Examples are when he thinks of food and it suddenly appears, or when he pulls wood and nails out of thin air so he can board up the doors and windows to protect himself. Any of these actions can be undone and rewound in seconds if Shaggy changes his mind, hinting at some possible time manipulation. Even if Ultra Instinct Shaggy was to get hit by some defiance of fate, his durability is stacked heavily with Toon Force like the rest of his allies. The one difference between all of those characters I talked about before and Shaggy now is that not only can he take the pain, but he can also dish it out 10 times harder. Don't even get me started on the stat boost Shaggy gets from eating Scooby snacks, a trait that he shares with another one of his CP9 members that also becomes much more dangerous once their favorite food gets brought into the equation. And speaking of Popeye, he is another Boomerang member that surprisingly reaches full-on universal to potential multi-dimensional levels of power. Except Popeye does not need any extra abilities from other animes to reach this level of strength. Give the Mad Lad some spinach and he's gonna embarrass any opponent you put in his way. In Darent's artwork, Popeye is making use of Gear 4, which is known to be a 30 to 40 times multiplier to your overall power level. But even before taking any of that into consideration, with just two things, his muscles and spinach, Popeye has been known to accomplish literally anything he's ever set his mind to. And I legitimately mean anything. After devouring spinach, any single wound, injury, no matter how lethal or severe, is immediately healed on Popeye's person. Popeye has literally returned from having his entire body reduced to nothingness, withstanding an entire universal shutdown and just telling the universe to go fuck itself afterwards. Meaning that even if the whole physical realm as a whole is wiped from existence, within that empty void of nothingness is just gonna be a Popeye that is super pissed off at whatever cosmic entity made that happen. And it's not like with all spinach removed from the universe that just makes Popeye powerless. On multiple occasions, the sailor has just been shown to conjure cans of spinach out of nowhere, creating a constant cycle of life that just never ends in death. But his reality warping doesn't just end there. This is still the man that punched his nemesis Bluto so hard, not only did he fly him to a different continent, once he hit the ground, the force canonically shifted the entire Earth's axis. And yeah, it is weird when you think of Popeye as a dimension busting character, but when you've got comics of Popeye literally fighting eldritch horrors from the 7th dimension, beating them in one punch, or reaching outside of the bounds of his universe to knock out his own animator, one truly opens up the more important question: why humanity is so hell-bent on creating terrifying horrors that are able to surpass all known comprehension. But yeah, thanks Darent, you just made a sailor that punches so hard actual star constellations crumble 30 to 40 times stronger. Was it worth it? I also bet going into this video, you would not have expected our next galaxy busting to universe level destroying CP9 member to be Judy fucking Jetson. The Jetsons' ordinary teenage daughter holds the power to potentially rock the galaxy. In the movie Rockin' with Judy Jetson, Judy meets her rock star idol Skyrocker, and together with him and the power of rock and roll, they're able to play a song called Rockin' Round the Galaxy, whose frequencies and melody are able to overpower and drown out a device called the Mental Flosser, which when activated was about to take control of the universe and banish all of music forever. So by sending her music's vibrations across the galaxy and then some, not only did Judy Jetson save music as we know it, she put herself above a good 90% of the cartoon villain roster in one single movie. And she is not the only secret galaxy level threat hiding in this Trojan horse of a villain organization, because even random roster fills like Pinky and the Brain have been known to threaten whole planets with their different inventions or shenanigans. Now, unlike Muttley, who lacks his mastermind in Dick Dastardly's absence, both Pinky and the Brain are present in the CP9, two genetically altered mice that plan to take over the world almost every single day they breathe. Brain is pretty self-explanatorily the genius of the two, while Pinky is usually more responsible for fucking their schemes up more than anything, and is frankly more there for Brain's moral support and overall mental health than really anything else. Besides simple headsets that let Brain see the future or clone armies, you must have missed the episode where the mouse made a device that brought inanimate objects to life and used it to animate the Earth, the entire planet itself, getting the world on his side, antagonizing and whispering words of treachery to turn it against his enemies. How do you actually beat animating the planet and getting it on your side as an ally? And that's not to underestimate Brain's sidekick Pinky either, as despite not being that smart, his overactive imagination and toon brain cell thought process has sometimes led to some of the best inventions and ideas that Brain has had. Pinky is also the much more street smart of the two, able to handle more survival instinct based tasks or strategies, and Brain can even maximize Pinky's effectiveness by turning him into a giant colossal kaiju monster that can obliterate whole cities. Not for nothing, I'm pretty sure that Pinky received telekinetic psychic powers from his side of the genetic alteration, but there's a running gag that anytime Brain notices it, Pinky immediately hides it. Now that I've said it, I cannot get the picture of Mob Psycho 100 Pinky out of my head, and now all of you have to see it too. If we were to add Pinky's kaiju form and possible psychic superpowers to Brain's crazy ideas, they could terrorize planets on an even grander scale, meaning they have the destructive potential, the means, and the intelligence to wipe out most threats that come their way, whether they're acting as a duo or even separate and solo their own talents. However, even with how much of a difference these last couple of Boomerang CP9 entries have made, I still haven't gotten to the actual tilt of this organization. No one could have ever possibly prepared the Disney Phantom Troop. No. No one could have readied any anime villain organization for what I'm about to speak of. These next members' power over dimensions, the physical planes of reality itself, may be unparalleled by any other entity entirely. These next 5 members will change the landscape of the entire series, introducing the 3 mythological layers of the Boomerang CP9 Hell. The first layer of Hell is a duo unlike any other, Tom and Jerry. As cartoon characters that have been shown surviving almost every single instance of pain or lethal intention possible, both Tom and Jerry have regenerated from mere vapor, piles of dust strewn about, have had their heads cut off, entire cities demolished in the wake of explosions that leave the entire surrounding area and everything in oblivion. There's literally never once been a hint of damage done to these characters that has remained permanent or lasted longer than a few minutes. And with this essential invincibility is the ability to split themselves into individual body parts that can all be controlled separately, or just outright teleport themselves to different locations without a single bit of stamina drained. Tom and Jerry have dodged lightning bolts and laser beams of pure light, and when both training and in muscular shape, they were unbeatable in their verse as the 2 strongest beings alive. However, if Tom and Jerry really want to end their opponent as quickly as possible and take the fight seriously, their full power is astounding to behold. While Jerry has brought pictures to life or turned them into pocket dimensions to demonstrate his dominion over reality, at full power, Tom was able to bring an entire palace to crumbling just by dancing, and Jerry still has access to a magic ring which allows him to stop, fast forward, or rewind time itself. In the Fast and Furry movie, Tom and Jerry brought literal ruin to all 7 continents and almost destroyed the planet beyond habitation, committing atrocities like splitting Australia in half or closing the Grand Canyon entirely. And all of this was just passive destruction and accidental collateral damage. Imagine what these 2 can do when putting their minds to it and working together. And if Tom and Jerry are just the surface, going a layer deeper would bring us to the second circle of hell, and inside we find Pink Panther and Woody the Woodpecker. And this is where we get weird. Pink Panther is an organism that was once thought to be an ordinary adult-sized panther, but after much research, not only is it clear that this quote-unquote panther has been around for longer than humanity has, it's also apparent that whatever this entity is, it will survive even after all of humanity has disappeared. Unlike Tom and Jerry, the Pink Panther's control over the physical plane and Toon Force overrides most other characters that also hold that power, as the Pink Panther has displayed dominance over his own universe and others by transitioning his show's scenes at will, altering the show's locations, or even worse, showing complete control over other living beings' bodies, erasing them from existence should they no longer hold value to the Pink Panther. As one of the original forefathers of Toon Force, it's almost as if the Pink Panther's knowledge transcends all comprehension, the animal somehow always being 2 steps ahead of any other character he's ever interacted with, to the point of omniscience. The Pink Panther can always make the right call, move, or think of the best complex strategy to accomplish his goal. It's either that or supernatural luck is in play, always bending reality to benefit Pink Panther. And should anything in the planes of reality bother Pink Panther, he's been shown to just vacuum the whole entire universe up and just replace it like it was nothing. Never afraid to just reset the dimension and start from scratch, which honestly just means that the Pink Panther is a Lovecraftian horror that might never even have to actually get in a fight with someone. And even worse, it seems he has control over all things that are the color pink, able to conjure himself out of or hide within any pink surface or object, and by dropping pink paint on trees or bushes, not only do they flourish and grow tall and wide, that pink influence spreads across the entire realm, making everything the Pink Panther's domain. And don't even get me fucking started on Woody the Woodpecker either. Basically, a great old one. Not only has Woody the Woodpecker also been shown to predate humanity's history, the woodpecker has returned from even having his whole existence wiped from reality, meaning that as an organism, the concept of death has no meaning over Woody the Woodpecker. And that's not just because Woody is like immortal or anything. It's more because he remains as a constant in any and all timelines. Not quite alive, not quite dead either. Woody has traveled through dimensions, time itself, encountered alternate versions of himself across different planes of reality. However, at no point does any of this cause a rip in the space-time continuum or change the timeline itself, making Woody almost like a Schrodinger's cat situation. As long as Woody is, he always will be. The woodpecker is always able to avoid danger, as if reality is subconsciously always changing to work towards Woody's benefit. But I wouldn't call this blind luck. Oh, no, no, no. Woody the woodpecker is very aware of his power over reality, and we have seen him constantly wield it for himself on multiple occasions. Woody has conjured weapons or objects out of the ether alone, even transmutating his body into other animals for disguise, or even into things like a rocket ship to fly to the moon. However, the worst thing about Woody, and also Pink Panther, is how much it seems they truly enjoy breaking their victims down over time and dragging them into a painful insanity. Like when Woody is gaslighting Officer Dooley into signing a piece of paper for him, or convincing an actual psychologist that they are the one that needs therapeutic help. And it's just that kind of unrealistic godliness that brings us to our last and final Boomerang CP9 member, because who would have thought it could have gotten any fucking worse than that? The strongest member of the Boomerang CP9, the father of Toon Force, Bugs Bunny. If someone finds a single thing in this video that Bugs Bunny can't do, I'll streak the naked mile and record it. Bugs Bunny's unrivaled level of Toon Force and multi-dimensional control will be studied for centuries to come. As a character whose intelligence and ability to strategize, as well as adapt to any and all phenomena they're met with, exceeds all known bounds of reality, it's safe to say that Bugs Bunny might actually be the smartest character in fiction. Bugs Bunny once modified Elmer Fudd's perception of reality itself, placing multiple green and red spotted dots in front of his eyes that slowly broke him down and disassociated him from the world entirely. Bugs was then able to conjure this mind-breaking illusion in the viewer themselves, his power passing the fourth wall effortlessly. Bugs once constructed an entire functional city with inhabitants and civilian infrastructure in seconds. However, the difference between Bugs and his cohorts is that while Pink Panther and Woody the Woodpecker just want to break their opponents down mentally, Bugs is willing to weave reality to create the worst possible personal hell for whoever he's deemed as his opponent that day. Bugs uses this versatility to become one of the most adaptable and well-learned beings in not just his dimension, but every dimension. There have been multiple occasions where Bugs has taught himself a new concept or power literally overnight, sometimes in the blink of an eye, such as when the rabbit dedicated himself to learning magic from a book and came out of the study session the best wizard in all the lands after one night. And by entering other cartoons or universes, Bugs can easily immerse themselves in any opponent's world or powers. All that being said, there is not a single cartoon alive that can compete or do the same thing to Bugs, as even when someone like Marvin the Martian devised a weapon that was specifically designed to break through Looney Tunes' immortality, the gun was able to properly kill every Looney Tune except for Bugs, who was only staggered by its effects. The only being that is a threat to Bugs Bunny would be his creator, and even then, the creator has never once beat Bugs in a fight, a grudge that has become an all-out multiple universe spanning war with no foreseeable end in sight, and that is everyone. The Boomerang CP9 is complete. Do you see what I mean now about how we started off super weak and then progressively got to some of the strongest characters in all of fiction? I think legitimately every cartoon villain organization that we know about should be scared and very worried to ever encounter this group. But let me know what you guys think. Comment your favorite Boomerang member, or if you think there's someone from another team that stands a chance against the 3 layers of hell. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, because I've got plenty more fun ideas like this coming in the future, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.